Good evening, everyone. It is 6:30. Welcome to the MSD of Martinsville School Board meeting. This meeting is a meeting of the school board in public for the purpose of conducting the school district's business, and it is not to be considered a public community meeting. Opportunities for public participation will be permitted in accordance with policy 167.3. If everyone would please rise and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
If we could please remain standing for just a moment, I'd like to take a second to have a moment of silence for two people that we lost in our community who mean a great deal to a large number of people. Specifically Coach Ken Roden, as well as Jerry Rogers, one of our custodians at our school. I would also ask that while we're thinking about those two and their families, that you would additionally think about and keep in your prayers some of our community members and some of our staff who are struggling with some pretty significant health issues right now. Thank you.
And at this time, we would do public comments, and we did not have any public comments at this time. So we will go into special announcements, and Dr. Arthur.
Thank you, appreciate it. So we're jumping a little bit ahead of our agenda. We're kind of putting some things at the front that we would typically hold to the end, but we know that we have a lot of people who are sort of on their edge of their seats about some announcements. And so we wanted to make sure that we're getting this information out right off the front of the meeting here. And then we'll go into some of the typical things that we usually do as a board and as a school district. And the first thing I want to talk about is graduation. As we have shared previously, we are holding to that graduation date of July 12th, which is a Sunday. Graduation, we have finalized the time. It will be 7 p.m. Graduation will be 7 p.m. Sunday, July 12th. There is no scheduled rain date. So we will be having that celebration, rain or shine, on July 12th at 7 p.m. The only thing that would change that is if we have inclement weather that would put us at a safety risk. And at that time, we will have to go to some other plan. At this point, not sure what that would be. Just to kind of put that in perspective, there are a number of things that we're having to do to make this possible in the summer. I think we've talked about in previous meetings, we do not have access to a facility that's large enough to have everybody together to also honor social distancing without doing it outside. Our typical arrangement of using the gym is not available this year because of construction that's going on. We're super excited about that. Our bleachers are being replaced, and that will look like a whole new facility once it's done. But that was not scheduled to start until after graduation in May. And now that we've moved graduation to July, we could not slow down that project. So we are using the football field. I know to many people that's super exciting, and we're excited about that too. So looking forward to that Sunday, 7 p.m. It is going to be warm and sunshiny and beautiful, fingers crossed. And I would just encourage everyone to be prepared for the heat. But we're going to do everything we can to make things as memorable as possible and as traditional as possible, but also be as efficient as possible. So glad to share that news. More information coming to senior families in the days ahead, but we wanted to make sure we got that information out. A couple of other pieces in just regards to graduation I want to share with you. We will have the standard photographer there taking photos, so that will be an option for our families, as well as each senior will have 4 tickets. We are going to hold to 4 tickets because of social distancing, so it's imperative that seniors follow the guidance that will be given here in the next few days to a week regarding where pickup of those tickets are and what that's going to look like. We will again hold to those 4 tickets to ensure that we're not beyond capacity of social distancing and what we need to do in the stands. So thank you for cooperating with us. We also know that if you take the number of students who are graduating times 4 plus all of us, that is a lot of people and that's a lot of vehicles. And so we will be sharing more information about the logistics of parking and those kinds of things. We will also be we're actually actively working on some shuttling to get people from potentially some other locations if we have to park off site. We will be using SNF, Bell, any square footage at the high school, anything that we need to get as many cars as possible there. So hopefully we can work through that. Again, construction is impeding our parking lots a little bit, which we're excited about. The field house, the groundbreaking has occurred, and so we've lost some parking there, but we are confident that we can get everybody in and have an awesome evening on the 7th. So we look forward to that. Second item I have for special announcements is the start of the 2020-2021 school year. I know that folks, I appreciate folks have been very patient with us on announcements and on providing information, but we want to assure everyone that we're working hard behind the scenes to best understand all the guidance that's coming from multiple agencies, as well as our work with the local Morgan County Board of Health. I met this week with the other 3 county superintendents, as well as the principals of the private schools that we serve in our county or that serve students in our county. We are all on the same page about the things that we shared both through Twitter and through all of our social media outlets, the things that have already been put out. I just want to remind everybody, but that's just the baseline. That's just the first set of information that's coming out. There will be additional pieces that each school district will create or will work on that are specific to the variables of their school district. So we're all very different. We all do different things. We all have different programs and different events. And so there will be some variables to what school looks like for each of our districts. So please know that more information is coming, but this is a process. It's not something that I just decide as the superintendent. We are working with a number of other agencies. I will also work very closely with our school board once we pull a plan together to ensure that they are on the same page and that they can support the direction that we're moving. That also involves the Teachers Association. Mr. Buckler and I have scheduled meetings and Mr. Ogden has scheduled meetings with the Teachers Association. We've had one. We have, I believe, one every other week moving forward until school starts. Mr. Buckler, does that seem right? See your head shaking. Just want to make sure I'm not misspeaking here, but we have those on the calendar. And so Tuesday, I believe, of next week will be our second meeting, and we will be providing some pretty significant details to the Teachers Association to get their input. We have also met with our leadership team, so all of our principals, assistant principals, deans. That happened a day or two ago, and so we have gotten their initial input. This will be a process as we go through the summer. So again, we ask for your patience and your understanding. Ultimately, at the end of the day, our job is to make sure that everyone is safe, students and staff. And so right now, what we know from the science and the things that we're seeing, the trends is that really students are staying pretty healthy, kids are staying pretty healthy relatively across the United States. It really is people who, bus drivers, teachers, those are the groups that are going to be susceptible to potentially getting sick. And so we have to protect everyone, but we certainly want to make sure that we have the staff to be able to run school. And so there will be things that we ask students to do that are truly in place to make sure that our staff are staying well and can come to school and we don't have to close for lack of adult supervision, those kinds of things. So bear with us as we parse through all of those details. We're just excited that we're going to get back to school. It has been made very clear by the top to the bottom, from the governor to the state superintendent to our local board of health, that, and we believe the same, that it is good for everyone's mental health to be back in school. And so we're going to do everything we can to make that happen safely. We have been initially promised that there will not be sweeping decisions made to close districts for small portions of positive cases, that those will be dealt with on a case-by-case basis, and decisions will be made building by building or classroom by classroom, et cetera. And so again, really good news, because we were fearful that we would repeat sort of what happened back in March. And unless we have a significant spread, which could possibly happen, we're not anticipating massive closings. But again, we'll have to see how that goes this fall and how obedient we can all be to kind of keep people safe and start the school year. One last point here. I know I'm talking about a lot of stuff here, and thank you for your patience, board. But the other piece I want to share just off the bat is that we also want to make sure that we give every student who is in an extracurricular activity, whether that be an academic extracurricular activity or a sports extracurricular activity, the opportunity to participate in those activities. it is imperative that people follow the rules that are being put forth by IHSAA as well as us regarding those extracurriculars, because once that sickness starts, it's going to be really hard for us to stop that and to continue those programs. We feel very strongly that we want to have football, we want to have wrestling, baseball, or excuse me, basketball, all the fall sports, winter sports, no doubt about it. There's no question that those are things that are imperative and are at the top of our list. But again, we've got to make sure that student athletes and parents are following the guidance that's put forth to make sure that we're not inadvertently ending seasons earlier or early at all if we don't have to. So thank you for the time. I appreciate it to kind of talk about those two things right off the bat. And both good news, ultimately, graduation, we're moving forward. I have to tell you, back in March, I wasn't quite sure how that was going to work. So I'm glad that we're there. And I'm glad people have been obedient and have helped us get there. So thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Arthur. Thank you so much to you and your admin team. I know there are countless hours been put in both endeavors. So I appreciate, the board does appreciate everything that you've done. My phone is blowing up with hands up on the football field. So thank you for considering that for those seniors. I know a lot of the kids had said they wanted it there. So thank you for taking that under consideration and making that a reality. So
just hydrate before you come.
Fine. Okay, thank you all. Okay, we will move forward into the consent agenda. If I could please have a motion to approve the consent agenda, please.
I make a motion that we approve the consent agenda.
Is there a second?
A second.
Thank you, Dave, and for making the motion, and Don for seconding. We will now go into roll call vote. Debbie?
Yes.
Dave?
Yes.
Don?
Yes.
And myself, yes. Motion passes 4-0. Thank you so much. And now we will go into, I don't believe we have student field.
We do not.
Okay, then we will go directly into other business, and I will hand it back to you, Dr. Arthur.
Thank you very much. We do typically on our agenda have a student field trips and professional travel, and we probably need to adjust that because, as many of you probably noticed, that is one of the items that both the CDC, the Morgan County Health Department, the State Health Department, our county superintendents, as well as counties around us have determined is not a good idea for this upcoming school year. So we are currently suspending field trips, so that will be an empty item here for a while. So we'll probably adjust and take that off.
Dr. Arthur,
yes.
just as a clarification for that is all field trips. That nothing locally, definitely nothing in the Indianapolis area. Just correct. It's all on hold.
Correct, it is.
Yes, thank you.
There could be changes to that. You know, as we get into the school year, if we find that really nobody's getting sick or things are going beautifully, we can certainly make adjustments to these pieces as time goes on. But we are going to initially hold to the no field trip rule, and that would be anything that happens during the school day would be something that would not be happening this school year until further notice. So if, for example, if a classroom is in a science classroom is studying something regarding something that they would typically take a trip to the zoo, they will not be going to the zoo this year. Teachers will have to find alternate ways to support the curriculum for those items. And my hope is that if things went beautifully second semester, we could open some of that back up and make some different decisions. Or worst case scenario, I hope the worst case scenario is that we would hold off for a year and then next year we could come back to some of those pieces.
Thank you.
Thank you for that question. Appreciate it. We ready to go?
Ready.
All right. Other business, bus replacement request provided by Mr. Dennis Mills, Director of Transportation. This particular item I'm asking you all for consideration and for a vote tonight. You've actually already approved the dollars for this purchase. I'm just bringing to you the, once you've already approved the money on a previous budget, this is what the bid actually came out and how we would actually like to spend it. So what this means is we're trading out 4 buses that are 12 plus years old, which by statute is a regular process. And we're trading those 4 buses for 6 new buses, 4 brand new regular size buses, as well as 2 activity buses. So it asks for a motion.
I would like to ask for a motion to approve the bus replacement request, please.
I make a motion that we accept the bus replacement request provided by Dennis Mills, Director of Transportation.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Debbie, for the motion and Dave for seconding. Is there any conversation, any questions? If not, we'll move on to roll call vote. Debbie,
Yes.
Dave,
Yes.
John,
Yes.
and myself, yes. Motion carries 4-0. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next item, request acceptance of RFP bid for Chromebook cases and Google licenses 1-to-1. Mr. Freeze is on Zoom with us, and so I'm going to ask him to just talk briefly about what students were referring to that these devices are being purchased for.
Yeah, these are for our 5th through 8th grade students. So they'll be replacing the Chromebooks at Bell Intermediate and John R. Wooden.
Mr. Freeze, would you also mind just mentioning real quickly the number of bids that you had and that kind of stuff?
Yeah, we actually got a really great response. We had 12 different bids, which probably one of our highest bid responses to date. We had about 4 different Chromebook models that were bid. Ultimately, we were able to get under the budget that we were set, find a device that's got a really good track record currently in multiple Indiana schools. Also, we were able to, because of the pricing, we were able to get cases for the devices, an additional protection plan on top of the standard manufacturer warranty, and we were able to find a company that provides a self-maintainer program as well. So that allows us to continue to get our staff and high school students certified and get repair certification. With another product beyond HP, we're moving to Lenovo this year. That will allow for additional certification and also allow us to do in-house repairs and just get that turnaround time substantially faster.
Thank you, Brian. I would also add just one additional detail because the question might arise, and I want to be clear with all of you as well as our community. This is not related to the HP fiasco that we had this fall with devices failing substantially. We have worked all year to mitigate that problem with the high school devices, and we now have pallets after pallet. We have pallet after pallet after pallet of replacement devices sitting at the high school. So high school students will be receiving replacement devices so that we no longer have to worry about that issue that we were worrying about a lot of last year. So just want to be clear that this is not related to that was all worked out through previous deal, and this is not an extra cost, or it's not related to that project.
Well, that is great news in regards to that HP problem that we had, unfortunately. A question for Brian. You said it was the largest bidding that he's ever went through. What has created the large group of people? Is it just many companies out there looking?
Well, I think we all know we're in a very unique time. And remote learning is becoming ever more prevalent, e-learning and similar facets. So a lot of companies are trying to make sure that they're providing K-12 with devices that they need for the school year. So there's a lot more interest right now for a lot of different companies to bid. Also, too, we've grown our network in terms of vendors and connections that we've had over the last several years. So that's allowed us to extend our reach to working with additional companies and maybe newer companies that we haven't in the past.
I'm going to skip ahead to the question part because since we've already started it. So I have 2, and I think you may have touched on it, but RD Intel will be able to work on these like they did before. And 2, the computers that the 5th through 8th grade have now, do we get to keep those? Do we get this? What happens to the ones that they had?
Yeah, so those are great questions. So RD Intel can work on these. They will be certified. But these being 5th through 8th grade, we have a dedicated tech for those 2 buildings. So that person will be able to facilitate those repairs along with the additional protection that we're looking at that handles accidental damage. So because we don't know if there will be closings or what the year might look like. This actually allows us to ship broken devices to the company, they fix it, and then send it right back. So this just gives us additional options so that if we don't, for some reason, if we're closed, staff aren't in place, they're able to get to those devices on top of already Intel and on top of technology staff. So we're kind of really covered on several different fronts in making sure that these devices are working and operational at all times. In terms of the older devices, great question. We continue to keep those. Google will continue to support those devices with software updates for at least the next 2 years. And so as long as that's continuing, they're still good devices. They're still in good shape. They still work. We want to continue to use those throughout the district. So we use them for a large variety of reasons. We use them for spare parts. We use them in different grade levels as devices begin to fail, their replacements. So yes, we will keep all of them. As many as we can, we will hold on to as long as Google will continue to support the device and the device works and makes sense. We'll continue to hold on to it.
Awesome. Thank you.
I have a quick question. You talked about high school getting those replacements, and then 5 through 8, these new ones. Are we solid with technology in K through 4 also, or is that something we're looking at? Or
I can speak to that, or maybe Craig, Craig, perhaps you speak to that from the curriculum perspective.
So yes, Debbie, that's kind of some long range planning. I think what the last few months have really proven to us is that we need to make sure that we are in good shape, really K through 12. And so part of our reentry plan and our plan for next year is to really make sure that everybody is on the same page, K through 4, and then 5 through 12. And so that's definitely something that's on our radar, and that Brian and I that's why those devices that are currently at Bell and Wooden are so important, because then they can help us with the K4. And what Brian and I can work on maybe for the next meeting or for August, we're really trying to work with Mr. Ogden and then Dr. Arthur for kind of a long range technology plan.
okay.
When, like, what's our rotation? When do devices need to be cycled out, cycled back in, and how can we build that into our budget? And so Jeremy and Brian and I have had several conversations on what that needs to look like, so that think of it almost like a textbook adoption. Every so many years, the devices would cycle out and new devices would cycle in, rather than it seem like, all of them are needing to be replaced at the same time.
Okay. I was just concerned, that everybody was giving them everything they need. Well, thank you.
Debbie, I'm an elementary guy, so don't worry. We're going to take care of everybody K through 12.
Thank you.
Hey, Brian, just quickly, roughly how many leftover devices do we have, grades 5 through 8?
Roughly about 1,300 devices. We still have a few out in the community that we're looking at some creative ways to still collect and provide some opportunity for those to get turned in. But we have a solid number available.
Okay, thanks.
Awesome. Thank you, Brian. Anyone else? Technology is definitely important at this time.
Sure is.
If I could please ask for a motion to accept the request acceptance of RFP bid for Chromebook cases and Google license 1-to-1, please.
I'll make a motion that we accept the RFP bid for Chromebook purchases as presented.
Thank you, Dawn. Is there a second?
I second.
Thank you, Debbie. It's moved by Dawn, second by Debbie. Is there any questions? We'll now take a roll call vote. Debbie?
Yes.
Dave?
Yes.
Dawn?
Yes.
And myself, yes. Motion moved or accepted 4-0. Thank you.
Thank you very much. These next two items are not quite as fun to probably talk about with most of the community, but they're certainly one of the most important things that we do. I know in last couple of years, or at least in the last year, the board's worked really hard with us as an administrative team to ensure that we're really thinking about our facilities in the same way that Craig just mentioned, Mr. Buckler just mentioned, technology, that we're thinking about things in phases, that we don't have, 17 properties worth of roofs that all have to be replaced at the same time. And that we also don't have catastrophic failures because we're not taking care of those in maintaining them in a maintenance kind of way. So long story short, this particular year, for various reasons, the costs of the projects that were previously approved, roofing projects, HVAC projects, have all come in lower than expected, which is an amazing thing. That's always good news. And so these two projects are projects that were extensions of roofing projects we were already doing that would have probably come a year from now. But because we have the funds to do them now, we're going ahead, and these projects actually, if you drive past Smith, you will see they're already messing with the roof now. So these are extensions of things that have already been pre-approved in terms of roofing. It's just we're doing them a little bit sooner. And so I would like your acknowledgement of these two projects.
So my question is, we did have this on a rotation. Each school was going to, so does that bump up then everyone, or will we have no rotation?
It bumps up everything. It really it gives us a cushion. I'm going to talk a little bit about budget here at the very end in my comments and concerns about, just the things that have been shared recently from the governor, et cetera. It's really important that any opportunity that we have, particularly right now, that we're being very sensitive to, if there's something that we can spend older dollars on and take care of things that we need to take care of now while we have the means to do so, it makes sense to do that and also do it in an efficient way, so that we might buy ourselves a year or two if we get in a position that we can't spend money on a roof. So if we have to suspend doing roof projects a year or two from now, we're really not going to be behind. We're actually going to be right where we're scheduled to be. So this is an advantage to us to go ahead and do it, just because prices are coming in low. I have to also tell you that right now, I can't explain it. Architects really can't explain it, but with our two projects that we have going on, both the field house as well as the Brooklyn project, those both came in lower than expected. And so again, though, that's all helping us to be able to do and sort of catch up on the stuff that maybe 5-10 years ago were things that maybe were not getting the attention that they needed. So I'm extremely pleased with the work that we're getting done inside our buildings that most people don't even notice. But increased quality of air, increased roofing issues, or increase us not having, or increase the probability of not having roofing issues, I guess I should say. So it buys us a little more time.
Do I do this as one motion, or
we can do it as two, all as one, because technically you've already approved the expenditure. So I just want to get the names on the record and the actual contracts approved. So if we could do, it's one company, Tyndall Southern Roofing, for the roofing project for Smith Fine Arts Academy, as well as the Martinsville High School project, which right now is over the swimming pool.
Gotcha. All right, here we go. It's gonna be a mouthful, but we'll get it.
We just need a roof. We just need a roof approval.
Well, if I could ask for a motion to approve the contract award to Dave Tyndall, Southern Roofing, for the Smith Fine Arts Academy and the Martinsville High School pool re-roofing projects, please.
I make a motion that we accept the roofing bid as presented to the board.
That's kind of cheating, but okay. Thank you, Dave. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Don. That has been moved by Dave and second by Don. We'll now do the roll call vote. Deb, or does anyone have any questions? I will now do the roll call vote. Debbie?
Yes.
Dave?
Yes.
Don?
Yes.
Myself, yes. Motion carries 4-0.
Thank you very much. Mr. Buckler, if you wouldn't mind chiming in on the next couple of items regarding curriculum.
Sure, absolutely. So really the next two items are just for your consideration. It's a continuation of textbook. Clearly with everything going on this spring, we landed a little bit further behind on a few things. We got the English language arts taken care of last month, and that just kind of left foreign languages. We needed a little bit more time to get things finalized. So I am asking for approval for 7th grade. It's a little bit of a shift. I believe previously maybe they just offered Spanish, And what it's going to be moving forward is introduction to 4 languages. And I think I shared that with you in the information that I sent ahead. I believe it's Spanish, French, I want to say Latin, and maybe German. The kids are going to get small chunks of that. And I think the thought process of that there is to give them more of an opportunity to maybe make a different choice when they get to high school. So it's really been some collaboration and cooperation between the middle school and the high school. Then for the high school, it's approval for the Spanish classes. The other languages looked at materials and didn't find anything that was updated that they felt like they needed new materials. I know the French classes use some consumables, which gets them what they need to for their instruction. And so I'm just asking for your consideration for the approval for that in 7th grade, because it's a little shift in what they've been doing. And then for the new textbooks for the Spanish classes at the high school level.
And then I just have a quick question. Was there no need to introduce kids into the American Sign Language? Or is that just an option they get when they get to high school, or there isn't?
I think that's an option that they get to the high school. And actually that program is something that I'm on the long list of things to follow up with. The instructor left before the finish of the school year. And so I know that's something that the high school team has been working on, getting that role filled. I will tell you that when I met with actually was a toss off, the director of the Indiana Online, she's retiring. And so I met with her as well as her replacement, actually right before the closure. And they could not have been more complimentary of the program at Martinsville. They actually use it as a model with other schools. So I know that we will continue that at the high school level. That's certainly a conversation that I can have with the middle school, if that's something that we need to maybe look at expanding. But right now, I think that that's just kind of a high school focus at this point.
I have 2 kiddos in it and they absolutely love it. So, okay.
Good.
And then also, Mr. Buckler, do I do this as 1 motion, or do you want me to do this as 2?
I think you probably could do it as 2. It's really just, you could do a motion to approve the world languages textbook adoptions, because really that spans 7 through 12.
Okay. All right. Thank you. I know everyone out there is going, why didn't you do your homework? But if I could please ask for a motion to accept the invitation to language grade 7 through 12 quote for John R. Wooden Middle School, please.
I make a motion to accept the invitation to language for grade 7 at the middle school.
Thank you, Debbie. Is there a second?
I second.
Thank you, Dave. That has been moved by Debbie and second by Dave. Is there any questions? I will ask for a roll call vote. Debbie?
Yes.
Dave?
Yes.
Don?
Yes.
Myself, yes. Motion carries 4-0. Thank you. I'd also like to ask for a motion for the to accept the world languages textbook adoption for spring of 2020, please.
I make a motion that we accept the world language textbook adoption for spring of 2020.
Thank you, Don. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Dave. Motion made by Don, second by Dave. Is there any questions? We will now do a roll call vote. Debbie?
Yes.
Dave?
Yes.
Don?
Yes.
And myself, yes. Motion is approved 4-0. Thank you all. Now on to textbook fees.
Mr. Buckler?
Oh, sorry. I'm looking at the wrong square.
No,
That's
that
right,
is,
and it's my-
I believe you have the textbook fees
Right.
for the elementary. I'm suspecting for the intermediate school. And again, I should have done my homework, and the middle school. The high school is still working on getting their things pulled together. And so those will come at the July meeting. And again, just everything we're doing, I will say publicly, I appreciate the patience of all of the classroom teachers and the work at the high school. Veronica Skaggs, who I believe is new to that position this year, as far as managing those pieces at the high school. She was planning on starting this work in March, and we met last week to start going over things. And so we talked through a few pieces. I told her to take a deep breath, work through with the staff, and so that will be coming. And so those really, I think at those levels, everything pretty much mirrors exactly what we did last year. There weren't many changes. I want to compliment my assistant, Nancy Brossman. She handles all of that at the elementary level. And then for the intermediate school and for the middle school, it was very collaborative with their teams.
Okay, so we're going to accept textbook fees for the elementaries, Bell, and John R. Wooden only, right?
Right. We're not ready for the high school. That's correct. They're still working on those. In fact, I was working with a couple teachers today, back and forth on getting some fees established for some of the courses.
And then if I heard you right, we're not you think it's going to be around the lines of the same amount? Or, I mean, did you see an increase?
I didn't note really any real increases in anything. The only shift would be potentially, since we adopted new English language arts for 5 through 12, there might be a change in what that looks like. But again, remembering that that amount is divided over the time period of the adoption. And I do know for one of the Project Lead the Way courses at the high school, we're still kind of trying to work to get the fees for that class established because it's a new course. There's a lot of supplies and resources and materials that go into that. So we're still working through that. But everything else, there wasn't really anything, especially at the elementary level, that was a real change.
Great. Okay, can I please ask for a motion to accept the textbook fees for the elementaries, Bell, and John R. Wooden, please?
I make a motion that we accept the fees for elementary, also at Bell and at Wooden Middle School at the present time.
Thank you, Dave. Is there a second?
I second.
Motion's been made by Debbie, or I'm sorry, motion's been made by Dave and second by Debbie. Is there any questions? We'll now do the roll call vote. Debbie?
Yes.
Dave?
Yes.
Dawn?
Yes.
Myself, yes. Motion carries 4-0. Thank you.
Great, thank you. On the next chunk of items, I'm going to ask for your consideration all in one lump sum or one lump chunk. The Bell Intermediate Student Handbook for approval, the J.R. Wooden Student Handbook for approval, as well as the Elementary Student Handbook for approval. Just as a side note, you will not see the high school handbook here yet. That is an item that we will bring to you in July, just as we're doing with textbook adoption. The reason for that is we wanted to give Mrs. Zarito the opportunity as the new principal of that building to see the handbook and have a say in any changes that might need to be made. So our two assistant principals have pulled together some things that suggestions that they would like to make. And of course, Mr. Buckler and I will be a part of that conversation before that gets finalized and brought to all of you. But we wanted to make sure that Misty was a part of that and could live with any changes that we might be making to this next school year for how we will handle things at the high school. So that, just so you know, that's why high school is not on here. It's coming in July. So I would ask for a motion from the board to approve those 3 sets of handbooks.
Did you see any major changes in the, I mean,
The one thing that I would draw to everyone's attention is that there may be, and I hate to use this word, but I don't know what else, or phrase, I don't know what else to use, is sort of a dress code section change if we are required by the CDC or by any particular entity at some point that we have to do certain things with masks or those kinds of things. So we're not putting those in there, but we may bring back to you as a board something that we need to tweak. If we have to tweak it before a board meeting, I will exercise that previous resolution that you all approved that allows me to make an adjustment based on the pandemic if there's something that we're being forced to do by an outside entity. Otherwise, it will remain as it's written, but that's the only change that I can think of that would need to be made down the road, but there aren't significant changes other than that. Mr. Buckler, can you?
Well, and I can just kind of follow up with that each of those handbooks includes a kind of a generic statement that says the guidelines set forth in this student handbook are subject to change based on guidance from, and I think we listed, orders from the governor's office, direction from the Indiana Department of Education. state and local health departments. And so we wrote the, actually, I want to compliment Melody Meyer. She kind of took the lead on that. And then we just kind of shared that with the intermediate school and the middle school, but basically just kind of created a phrase that if there needed to be changes in the moment, that was kind of a catch-all. Since this upcoming year, there are still so many question marks. We wanted to go ahead and get the handbooks approved. And then like Dr. Arthur mentioned, if we have changes moving forward, we will absolutely bring those. And of course, push all of that information out to our students and our families. It's not like we're going to change things and then not let anybody know. If there are changes or adjustments that need to be made, then we will share that through this venue, but also that will have already been shared with our families.
So just to make sure, the handbook does not conflict with the information that came out from the superintendents about have a mask with you. It doesn't say.
We did not put anything in the handbook specific to COVID response. We just said that there may be adjustments or additions to what was already in place. And so once we finalize what those pieces are, so the masks, that's a great addition. And that's something that actually has fallen between the handbooks being finished and this meeting, that, you know, masks are going to be required to be on the person at all times, not necessarily being worn at all times, but they have them with them at all times. Absolutely. So my goal would be that we kind of have those pieces a little bit, well, definitely nailed down before our July meeting, so that we could probably give an update with these are the specifics that are, you know, COVID reentry related that have been added to the handbooks or to the student expectations.
Are these still available on each individual school's website, and then they're all available on our MSD website? I mean, because a problem we always have is the parents just don't read them. I mean, you know, and you know, this time this is really important, and so I didn't know if there was, you know, I know we used to hand a paper copy to each family. I don't know if that's possible, but this has stuff in it that they're going to need to make sure they read. And, you know, a lot of times they don't.
The handbook as it stands, we'll have it in the same manner that we have before. And I saw Jane shake her head, so I'm confident that to answer your question, on the elementary websites as well as the district website, that's a
Okay.
definite. In terms of the COVID-19 response kinds of things, that's going to go out in lots of different ways.
Oh, good.
Okay. Just honestly, we're trying to keep that out of the handbook because we don't want to put things in the handbook that we have to keep editing. The handbook is really more about, you know, what are our standard procedures for attendance, for, you know, behavior, for those kinds of things. So those things shouldn't change. I mean, once you guys approve it tonight, assuming you do, I mean, we're not going to change how we handle a particular behavioral issue after the fact. What we're kind of talking about is the COVID-19 stuff is really not probably going to land in the handbook per se. I mean, it could if you guys want it to, but I don't think it needs to. That's probably going to be a separate changing information. Otherwise, we're going to be reapproving the handbook every month, is my guess.
But I like that you're putting it in several different avenues to make sure they get it.
Right.
That's why, thank you.
Yep.
Dr. Arthur?
Yes,
the
sir.
The word mask has been used several times in this conversation. If people are looking ahead, we see if you're out and about in the community, you'll see all different types of masks, everything from masks with little ventilators in it,
right,
to bandanas.
Right.
Are there stipulations on what type of mask for children to wear?
That is a great question. Though we will obviously be providing more on that as we kind of provide more of the detailed plan, but I can definitely answer that question now. Mask equals face covering at this point. So as long as somebody has a face covering of some type, that would be reasonable. The point is just trying to keep people from sneezing or things that are, you know, we would normally not really be paying attention to, would be kind of kept to ourselves, as opposed to, you know, coughing on our teacher or sneezing on our teacher, those kinds of things. I mean, we're all teachers, we're used to being sneezed on, and quite honestly, most of us probably don't jump very quick because it's just part of it. But we're going to have to learn to jump quicker, and we're going to have to make sure that we're protecting ourselves as well as our kids are helping to protect us, and vice versa. So face coverings of any kind, as long as there's something that is a face covering and the intention of that face covering is to act as a mask, then I think we can live with that. That's what that's the conversation we've been having as superintendents really across Indiana, not even just Martinsville and Morgan County. Additionally, we know that there are going to be circumstances where we need kids to wear masks at certain times of the day. And if we see that someone doesn't have one, they're going to have one. So we will figure out how to make sure that student has a mask.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. And thank you, Debbie, for pointing out for parents not reading the handbook. I have one walking across the stage, and I'll be the first to admit I've not read one from cover to cover.
Oh, no.
Someday you can do a reading, a vocal one, like a Kindle or Audible. Maybe you can do that.
Okay, I'll tape it for you.
You can do one on Audible, and I'll listen to it as I work out. How about that?
That sounds good.
Thank you all. If I could please have a motion to accept the handbook for Bell Intermediate, John R. Wooden, and the elementaries for approval, please.
I'll make a motion.
Go ahead.
I'll make a motion that we accept the handbooks as presented for elementary, Bell, and John Wooden Middle School.
Thank you, Don. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Dave. That has been motion made by Don and seconded by Dave. Are there any questions? We will now do the roll call vote. Debbie,
Yes.
Dave,
Yes.
Don,
Yes.
myself, yes. Motion carries 4-0. Next, non-certified salaries.
Thank you very much. This is an extension. This next item is an extension of the work that we've been involved in all year with making sure that we're kind of bringing everybody up based on this past year's budget and giving people appropriate raises. So I turn things over to Mr. Ogden. This is, I believe, almost the final step in us being done with this school year. We're finally just about there. We still do have one step left with principals and their contracts because they do all expire on June 30th. We will be bringing those new contracts to you all at the July meeting for approval. Mr. Ogden.
Thank you, Mrs. Ball and Dr. Arthur. I appreciate all you guys do. We've spent a lot of time throughout the year just trying to look at, salaries and make sure that everybody is compensated fairly. So we gave a raise second semester to non-certified staff, and we had some different ranges to where those folks kind of played into. So we've kind of compensated them there, and then we looked at coming up next year based on income, things that are coming in for next year. So all non-certified staff will receive a quarter raise on top of the amount that they were already scheduled to get. So if I was in lane 3 and I'm supposed to go to lane 4 and that's $1.50 raise, then they'll get that on top of that quarter. So we feel like that's fair for where we're at right now with the other raises that we have provided, our certified staff, and then looking at our administrators and then the times that we have coming up. So extremely excited to take care of those folks and make sure that, they feel like they're valued, and we can't wait to have them back in the building working with our kiddos. So.
And just as a quick reminder, board, you previously approved, please don't hold me to the month because I can't remember, but you previously approved a one-time stipend for this same group of people. So it would be the stipend paired with the 25 cents, paired with the fact that they'll get a step with the new year, assuming their evaluation was effective or highly effective from their supervisor. So we surveyed them and asked their supervisors to survey folks back several months ago and asked, would you rather have it all on the hour, or would you rather have a stipend and some on the hour? And so this is why it seems kind of broken what we're doing, but we're trying to honor what this particular group of employees had asked us to do. So it's not just as simple as they're getting a 25-cent raise. There's some other pieces that have come into this.
Thank you. And yes, the board does acknowledge that this group is invaluable. They help the teachers and they're working with the kids so much. So I am extremely happy that we're able to do this for them. If I could please have a motion to accept the non-certified salaries, please.
I make a motion to accept the non-certified salaries.
Thank you, Debbie. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Dave. Motion has been made by Debbie and second by Dave. Are there any questions?
I just want to say they're a very important part of our family, and I'm so glad that they are getting the recognition that they so deserve, because part of our family, part of our village, and that's what we need.
Thank you for supporting that.
Yes. We will now do anyone else? We will now do the roll call vote. Debbie,
Yes.
Dave,
Yes.
John,
Yes.
myself, yes. Motion carries 4-0.
Thank you. We're getting close. This might be our longest board meeting ever since I've been here. This is good conversation. This next item, notification for suspension of school board policies conflicting with waivers or extensions during the COVID-19 pandemic. To give you the short explanation, basically what this does is it allows us as a school system to continue moving and operating, moving forward, even if there is a school board policy that's being violated by state statute or executive order from the governor or directives from the state or from either the State Board of Health or the Morgan County Health Board. So what you're agreeing to tonight, if you approve this resolution, is that we won't have to come back together every time we find a conflict between our school board policies, which really shouldn't change once we're back out of the COVID stuff. We would still honor the things that are there anyway. But this gives us the ability during that time to not have ourselves in hot water because we have a policy that directly conflicts with the law.
Okay, if I could please ask for a approval for suspension of school board policies conflicting with waivers or extensions during COVID-19 pandemic, please.
I make a motion that we, well, excuse me, that's a long one, Michelle. Make a motion that we suspend any school board policy under the COVID-19 throughout the school year. I hope I said that correctly.
You close enough, Dave. Thank you. Is there a second?
A second.
Thank you, Don. You took the easy route there.
Yeah, I did.
Is there any questions? We will now do the roll call vote. Debbie,
Yes.
Dave,
Yes.
Don,
Yes.
myself, yes. Motion carries 4-0.
Okay, last item I'm going to ask you to vote on. This one's easy. Always easy to take things that are being given to us. We have a donation that's being provided to us by Delta Theta Tau to the Martinsville High School DECA group. So I would ask the board to consider accepting that donation of $500.
I'd like to ask for a motion to accept the donation of $500 from Delta Theta Tau to MHS DECA, please.
I'll make a motion that we accept the donation of $500 from Delta Theta Tau to the MHS DECA program.
Thank you, Don. Is there a second?
I second.
Thank you, Debbie. Motion has been made by Don and seconded by Debbie. Is there any questions?
I would like to say something in regards to that sorority, and I hope I have the correct sorority. They're the ones with the taco stand at the county fair. Is that correct?
I think so.
Okay. They are in July 24th, 25th, 26th. There's a couple days in July. They are going to be open. They do, this is their fundraiser, the week of the county fair. And of course, they're left out. They're not going to be able to be open, but they are going to be open for 2 days in late July. So carry out orders only. And I'm ready for a taco salad. So, but anyway, I just want to say, boy, let's support a group like that if we possibly can. They do great things in our community.
Mm-hmm.
I'll let you bring mine to me, Dave.
Okay.
Okay, so any other questions? We'll now take a roll call vote. Debbie,
Yes.
Dave,
Yes.
John,
Yes.
myself, yes. Motion carries 4-0. 4-0, sorry. Thank you so much for that sorority donation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. A lot of items to vote on tonight, so thank you for everybody's patience.
Yes, and now did you have any additional superintendent's comments?
You know, I always have things to say. So I have two topics I want to talk about just briefly. I pardon my head shift here because I did type 2 things I want to read. It's a little easier for me to kind of make sure that I am hitting all the points. I don't typically like to read things, but I felt it was imperative tonight, just given what's going on in the world and what's going on in our local community, to make sure that people understand where my stance is and where our school district stance is on some of the things that we'll be doing this next school year. The first thing, the school year will engage with various stakeholders, especially students and staff, regarding the recent issues that have bubbled up in society, even as recent as of today with the Supreme Court decision. Public schools are imperative to the foundation of democracy. You can't have one without the other. You can't have public schools and have democracy. You got to have both, and they both support one another. To this end, in my opinion, it's imperative that we as a school community continue to engage with one another in civil ways to better understand our similarities as much as our differences. I've engaged with our Teachers Association, MCTA, regarding the recent riots, civil rights unrest, implicit bias, racism, things that exist in our nation that are bubbling right now. We are all committed, and I am speaking on behalf of the leadership of MCTA, but I got all their head nods, and I believe we're all on the same page. And if we're not, they will certainly call me out, and I appreciate that. But we are all committed to doing what we can do to be a positive change agent, both for our community of Martinsville, as well as making sure those outside of Martinsville know what we're about as a public school system that serves all kids. It is imperative and important that everyone understands that we are here to serve all kids. We are a public school system. I'm proud to say that our teachers and administrators are already leading in the areas of diversity. I was impressed at our last discussion meeting, all the things that are already happening in our classrooms to better understand one another and understand the things that are going on in our world, but we can always get better. And so that we had a really nice conversation on ways that we might engage in some of those things this next year. This coming year, we will spend time and effort learning more about race discrimination, LGBTQ+ bias, as well as immigration changes that are occurring before our eyes, as I said in the Supreme Court today. Knowledge is power. We owe our teachers and our staff the tools they need to continue growing the best citizens possible for our country. So we are committed to better understanding all the kids in our corporation and in our community, as well as all the families we serve, and making sure that we're doing the best that we can to support public education. So that's my first item. My second item, which is much more quick, but equally as important, I'd like to address just the budget information that came out from the governor this week. I want to reiterate my appreciation of the state of Indiana budget officials for finding ways to avoid cutting K-12 education this particular school year. The key to that point is I'm appreciative of not cutting funding this particular school year. I think we have to be very sensitive to the fact that we have been given a promise that is not quite yet in stone yet. I will feel much better about this promise once it's in stone. So we will continue as a school district to keep the practices in place of being efficient and being very considerate of staffing patterns, those kinds of things, to ensure that we're not putting the district or the board or anyone in a position that we have to inadvertently put you in regarding the budget and those kinds of things. So again, I'm very appreciative of what those budget officials have done to try and quote unquote save public education this particular year. Historically, if you followed public education funding, these things do not last long. And so we're going to be sensitive to the fact that we could a year out from now be in a position that we don't have the same luxury. So again, we're in good shape. I've really appreciated all the great things the board has done to support over the last handful of years, budget cuts and getting things in order. I'm super excited about the things we've been able to do just in the short time I've been here to kind of even do a little bit more, but continue programming and just look at things a little bit differently. So again, highly appreciated. Not in stone yet, but we are good to start this fall. One last point that I want to make, because I think sometimes people forget about this or will forget about this, is that basically all schools across the United States have declining enrollment. We have a demographic study that I'll be sharing with you as the board, as well as the community here very soon. And in that demographic study, it speaks to the research base that tells us that. So we already have a little bit of things stacked against us as a community, just as everyone else does, because the birth rate has been down across the nation. So that's one thing that is definitely impacting our demographics for our community. But the other piece is we don't know how many students are going to come back this fall. So, or how many students might not come back this fall. And that directly impacts our budget, because every student that sits in a seat when we are at count day is what helps support our budget and our finances for our school district. So it's very important that, you know, we're doing everything that we can to be supportive of kids and to help families understand, and we're being transparent about all the things we're doing to keep kids safe so that people feel comfortable sending their children. We hope to see every student in August that we had here back in March. And so we will be doing all the things that we can to try and maintain those kids. There have been some interesting conversations, which again, I'm also appreciative of the governor and state superintendent, Dr. McCormick. There's current legislation that says that if you run school through a virtual model, the funding is much different than if you run school where you have students in seats and you supplement that with e-learning. So we have been a district that has taken that route of students in seats supplementing with e-learning. We have not been running virtual programs. And so we will most likely, and this will come out in the plan, continue to operate in the same way that we have, leaning on e-learning in times in which we need to, but for the most part, leaning more toward actual face-to-face instruction as much as possible this school year. Again, the governor has said that they're not going to hold people accountable for those percents, meaning if virtual is one thing and seat is another, but until that's in writing, I'm not willing to put things in place that would potentially put us in a budget shortfall this next school year as a result. So just some information, nothing that we need to necessarily, there's no vote here, anything like that, but I wanted to make sure that people know we are talking about the tough topics that are going on in our world right now, and we are also paying very close attention to the things that are coming out of the State House. So thank you very much for your attention tonight. I appreciate all of you.
Thank you so much. We do appreciate everyone tuning in tonight, even our cute little Zoom bomber there in the corner. With that, we will adjourn. The next school board meeting is July 16th at 6:30, and fingers crossed we will be meeting at CEC so we can see everybody's beautiful faces again in person. Oh, need to vote to adjourn. I'm so sorry. Is there a motion to adjourn?
I make a motion that we adjourn.
Thank you, Dave. Is there a second?
A second.
Thank you, Don. Motion's been made by Dave and second by Don to adjourn. Is there any questions? Roll call vote. Debbie?
Yes.
Dave?
Yes.
Don?
Yes.
Myself, yes. Motion is adjourned. Thank you all.